So let's begin. Let's make a note on this week's Parsha, okay? The annual cycle, because most of our listeners are following the annual cycle. It's Parshas Vayera this week. Vayera is taking all of Avraham Avinu's tests and now raising the difficulty level to, twice, raise the difficulty level. Turn everything, subvert Avraham Avinu's expectations and make the tests the exact opposite of everything that's been told before. Let's start from the beginning, okay? The whole idea of protecting Sodom, okay? First time around, when Sodom was under attack, okay, faced with destruction, what did Avraham Avinu do? He intervened, right? So this time, God's basically telling him, I'm punishing them again, but this time, I'm going to prevent you from intervening, right? So he has to resort to prayer. And unlike the previous instances, throughout Lech Lecha, Avraham Avinu prays to God, and what happens? His prayers are answered, right? What prayers did he make? The first one. The first was when he was given the promise of the land, said, now, how do I know? Okay? Abraham's supplication to God, and God showed him, keep the bris of the korbanos and you'll keep the land, right? And later, Avraham Avinu was also able to successfully pray to God regarding what would happen to Yishmael. Okay? And God says, don't worry, I've listened to you. I'll give you, he'll get, he'll also be a great nation. And Avraham Avinu is also given the covenant of bris, right? It says that a few times Avraham Avinu called out the name of God. What does it mean? He called out the name of God. He successfully prayed for something. He called out. He was doing that, and then suddenly, Avraham Avinu basically is stuck in a position where he has to bargain with God, so to speak, right? And does it work? It works, really. He's able to save the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah and the rest of them.
No, he's able to save whoever is in it from.
He saved one person. He saved Lot.
Yeah. Lot wouldn't have been saved without him, probably.
Yeah. It says God remembered Abraham and saved Lot. Okay, that sort of subverted expectation. Next, what happens in Sodom? What happens with Lot, by the way? Also, it doesn't really work out so well. That's kind of a surprise. The Torah basically sets it up that Yitzchak, Ammon, and Moab were all born around the same time. Okay, basically, it was a very eventful year. Okay, they all have all those great tribes that came from all those people, all basically born the same year. Okay, next, Avraham Avinu goes to the land of the Philistines, and once again his wife is kidnapped. But this time, instead of leaving Birchush Gadol and all that and being kicked out, the regulars are basically make him one of their own. Avraham Avinu decides, I'm going to stick around these Philistines, okay? And he's told to pray on their behalf, right? Pray on them, okay? Give back this man's wife because he is a prophet, and he will pray for you, okay? And then you will live. And it says Abraham prayed for Avimelech, right? It's interesting. It says Be'adish to, okay? It says Kiyatzor Atzar Hashem. Look at this interesting word here, just to point out to people who are asking about it. We'll take a digression. It says Avimelech u'ishto. What does that tell you about Avimelech? He's planning on marrying Sarah, right? That was his plot, right? Mm-hmm. And it says, the Torah says he hadn't gone near her. And up until this point, Avimelech just has one wife. Normally, if we were talking about, let's say, someone who's a somebody back then, what I expected to say?
You'd expect that he has multiple
with Ishto Amhuthau Wayeledu. Yes. Right. Ishto. What's Amhuthau? Amhuthau means his maidservants. Mm-hmm. Was he impregnate all his maidservants? No. That's just the biblical form for, well, who are all the people surrounding Avimelech? His sarim. It's you and me, they're his sarim. They're his, his advisors, etc., right? The big shots who are surrounding him. Pichol, Sartzeva O, shows up later in the Parsha, right? Mm-hmm. But in relation to them, just like Pharaoh has sarim, but when we say what's their relationship to Pharaoh? Avdei Pharaoh, right? So Avimelech's entourage are called his avadim, right? Avadav, that would be the Hebrew term. Amhotav means, therefore, his higher-ups' wives, okay? They would be called Avdotav or something like that, his female servants. The female of servant, Shifchotav or Amhotav. Amah, as we saw last year, and Amon and Shifcha are interchangeable, and often the Targum is the same. Okay, so here Amhothau is referring to his his advisors and cabinet members' wives. Okay.
Actually.
Well,
The center.
Yeah.
Both.
Well, so yeah, sometimes both. And if you want, I have Marmakomos about this, color coded when what is translated as what. Okay. Someone asked, Rabbi Bar Chaim was asking about this. What was mentioning chata'im? How do you know the word? What's the word for sin? So I was going to explain the mishkal. When you put a dagesh in that type of form, a chata, let's say, chet tet aleph, with a patach under the chet, and a dagesh in the tet, and then a kamatz underneath the tet, means it's like the profession. I'll give you an example. Go nav, kamatz patach, no dot in the nun. Go nav means a past tense verb meaning he stole, right? If you switch around, if it's patach kamatz, ganov, it means a thief. Someone who didn't just steal it, means it's now, okay? And there's a dagesh in the nun. So too, chata means someone sinned. There should be a patach under the tet, but it's a silent aleph at the end of the shoresh. So it becomes a kametz. And a chata with a patach kamatz, and a dagesh in the tet means a person who habitually sins. And that's what the pasuk says. It's chata'im with a dagesh in the tet. And it's not a chataf patach under the chet, meaning the plural of chet. So that's how you know the pshat is not like Bruria's drasha. The pshat is it's the people, the sinners. Okay, people who habitually sin.
Yeah, brings this in connection to Vayera of the kashat.
Yeah, kashat is the same thing. Keshet is a thing. Who, if there was a verb, it would be kashath, kamatz patach. But if you say kashath with a dagesh in the shin and a patach first and then the kamatz, it means the profession, okay, or the person who does it all the time. And there are other examples in Hebrew.
Nahaz.
Yeah, nahab. Yeah. Sapar. That was the other example we're going to say. Sofar means he counted. Sofar, kamatz patach, no dagesh. And if you say patach kamatz and the dagesh in the middle, you have a barber. Okay. Now, continuing. Then we have Avraham Avinu has his son born, right? And flip the script around until this point, Yishmael was decent. Avraham Avinu's been told he's not the main deal, but Yishmael still has a promise. Shnei Masar Yisnim Yalid, he'll be a great nation. Yishmael willingly submitted to circumcision at the age of 13, legally an adult. He went along with it. It says, emphasizes Avraham and Yishmael went along with this, and now suddenly kick him out and get rid of the woman also. Hagar was handpicked by Sarah. Hagar was to Sarah as Eliezer was to Avraham Avinu. Make sense? How do I know that? Well, it says originally Eliezer, Eved Avram, was such a higher up, Avraham Avinu's top man, that Avraham Avinu had a Havamina before Yishmael was born, and after Lot was gone, that Eliezer was his heir. Correct? That's what Avraham Avinu said. That's his explicit Havamina. And God had to tell him, no, he is not your heir. And when Sarah needs a surrogate mother to raise the child that she wants to have, but she cannot have, who does she choose? Her own shifcha. Okay, just like Eliezer, he's called Eved, even though between you and me, what we call Eliezer today? His relationship to Avraham Avinu. Well, it depends on which culture you're talking about. He was his top Talmud, his Masharius, whatever it is. So that's what Hagar was to Sarah. And now, flip the script, get rid of them, both of them, this woman and her child. I'm assuming not like Dr. England, who famously pointed out that Yishmael's name is missing from the entire story. Yet, also, why was he named Ishmael? Because God has heard Hagar, right? And then, in this story, the Na'ar, by the way, he's always called Yeled, and then halfway through the story, he becomes Na'ar. And then he's called Na'ar the rest of the story, even though the Targum stays the same.
Does it say Ulema?
No, it says Ravia. Okay? Very interesting. Check that out.
Wait,
yeah. Well,
Alan Smith, I think his name is.
Yes.
Wrote about this as well, and he said it's because of what he did that caused him to be kicked out. What the real meaning of that is.
Okay. There is obviously something hiding behind this. So
he lost innocence.
Yeah. So once again, Avraham Avinu has his whole thing flipped over, and then Avimelech and Pichol show up, right? And they actually want to make a deal with him, right? An actual bris shalom. Until this point, Avraham Avinu's relationship with other kings usually results in a war or them trying to kill him, right? Get out. The first kings Avraham Avinu had to deal with tried to kill him. That's according to the Medrash. And then he goes, Pharaoh doesn't want anything. Get out of my country. And then there's a war. Okay, the Second World War. The First World War was between Cain and Hevel. Most of the world's population was involved, and it ended up killing 50% of the youngsters in the entire world at the time. So it's pretty bad. And this is the Second World War. Avraham Avinu was involved in that. And now this time, unlike all the other times, they're actually offering Avraham Avinu a preemptive peace. Okay, don't attack us. Avraham Avinu, please. Im tishkor li ulinini l'nechti. Avraham Avinu, please don't attack us. We'll submit to whatever you want. We'll agree to your conditions. That's basically what Pichol and Avimelech says to Avraham Avinu. Interesting. So things are changing. And finally comes the ultimate flip it all on its head, and that's the Akedah. Because Avraham Avinu had been promised everything through Yitzchak, right? Continuity. This is it, right? Now, turn that son into a korban and start again. And do exactly against your nature. Okay? Your kind and gentle nature, right? Do human sacrifice. Everything about the Akedah, the test is the exact opposite of what Avraham Avinu stood for, right? So this parsha really ups the ante. Okay? All the tests are like the previous one, except much harder. What is it?
They believe that Pichol is a person's name or a role name, like Paro.
We don't know, but I'm sure in Avimelech also, Yeah. Back then, I'm sure there wasn't much of a difference. These British people, when they get a title, people actually go by these titles. It becomes part of who they are. It's even courtesy titles. People keep them throughout their lives. You've seen this type of thing, So, yeah, there you go. Speaking of which, there's a guy who lost his courtesy titles last week. The King of England demoted his brother, deprinced him. Now,
Prince Andrew?
Yeah.
Formerly Prince Andrew.
The Andrew formerly known as Prince. What happened to him? I don't know, whatever. It's like, I first of all believe that King Charles III himself is a much bigger sinner than his brother. His brother's never been convicted. His brother still denies all the charges. And if he did commit rape, so that's pretty bad. However, His Majesty is an adulterer, an admitted adulterer, a well-known adulterer. And for a Benin Dolach, he's chayiv misa many times over before he was king, when he was still a head yot. Okay? So that's the first thing. To be so judgmental about that is wrong.
Oh, he's done even worse than that.
Okay.
Which I can't
Fine.
say here.
No, fine. That's the first thing. Secondly, there is this concept of what do you call it? Kvod Malchus, right? And we do respect kings because you say that it's sort of a reflection of God. God has chosen certain people, Basar V'Dam, not his Yereov, those who fear him among Jews, but even Basar V'Dam who do not fear God are given some of God's glory, and we are supposed to recognize that. Eliyahu Navi still gave props to Achav, even though he was wicked. Okay? But this Kvod Malchus, due to, let's say, even people who are just children of the king, or the queen in this case, right, is by what right? Birth, correct? He earned it just by being born. If the King of England decides that he's going to demote his brother and rob him of whatever rights he is due just by being born, his right to be Duke of York and Prince and all that stuff and all the other titles he had, by what right does the king have anything? Okay? He's pogea, okay? Or pogaim, his own rights. Chazal mentioned this regarding someone who realized this. Who was it? Yehu. Just after taking the throne by force, Yehu, king of Israel, what do you think to do? Oh yeah, we have to bury Izebel. Bas Melechi, okay? Izebel, who they just defenestrated on his orders, okay? And she deserved it. Okay? The Nevi'im had already come and said, this is what's going to happen to her. The dogs are going to lick her blood, and etc. No, they did that to Achav, right? They're going to bathe in the harlots are going to bathe in the blood and everything, and they're not going to find anything left of Izebel, right? The dogs will eat her, right? Elionavi said that. So Yehud said, after he had a bite to eat and taking over everything, Yehud said, we still have to bury her because Kvod Malchus, like, I'm king now, so I have to respect my position. I have to give, at least some respect to those who are also in this position. Bas Melech, he didn't even say, you note that he was the king's wife or the king's mother. Yeah. Because Kiyahu knew how to understand these things. That's why he's a messianic figure. He didn't mention, by the way, note, Yehu didn't say, oh, he's a king's, she is a king's wife. It was Achav's wife. That wasn't her privilege, her natural privilege, because anybody can marry the king. And it wasn't, she's the king's mother, because Achav had many wives and could have made, the son of any other of his wives king, right? Izebel didn't deserve royal respect because of who her husband was or who her son was, Yehoram. It was because she was what? The daughter of Ithbal, king of the king of Sidon, right? So that's what Yehu was pointing out. She deserves something, the littlest something, even though she's an accursed woman. That's what he called her. And God had, said the worst things about her. She got her punishment, and she was a terrible idol worshiper and a murderous woman, right? Worse than Achav, right? Even Achav wouldn't go so far. Followed his wife. It says that's what made him worse. His wife, right? But with all due respect, Tarte Mashma, Yehu said we still have to give some respect, right? So too, I don't believe that Malchei Umus Ha'olam could be doing this to each other, saying demoting each other. You don't deserve any covet anymore. So by what rights do you get covet? That's basically what he said, right? Okay, just think about that conceptually. Okay, Medalgim Hayinu al Gabi Aronos Shalmesim. You learn that in Brachos. That's one of the first Gemaras you learn. Why did they run to see the king? So that when you're Zoche, you'll be able to understand what Kvod Malchus is really like. You want to get an inkling of that. And unfortunately, we don't have that today. People don't respect anybody.
It says so
Yeah,
that one sees the difference.
Yeah, then we'll get an understanding. But you have to first see it in order to understand the difference.
Yeah, so where's the Malchus Yisrael?
Yep.
Probably this mitzvah doesn't even apply today.
It might. Okay, this week's...
I'm descended from the emperor.
Cool. So, wait,
My
to what
brother's
extent?
seen the emperor.
To what extent? How far back?
1,300 years.
Okay, so I'm sure everybody's descended by that point.
No, it's
Okay.
not, only 5% of the country.
Really? Only 5% is descended from the emperor. That's still...
It's still millions.
In a country of 150 million people. Next. This week in Obscurantism, the 6th of Mar Cheshvan was last week. I didn't get to talk about it. What happened on the 6th of Mar Cheshvan? This is hilarious. You want to take out the Etam Levinic calendar? You want to see what it says there? What happened on the 6th of Mar Cheshvan? You know what it says? The Rambam came to Jerusalem, and on the 9th, he went to Hebron. This is a great day in history. Etam Levinic calendar points out. Rambam made it to Jerusalem. Oh, you know what they left out?
He went to Harabayit.
He went to Beis Hamikdash. He went to the Bayis Hagadol v'Kadosh, and I got to pray there. And just as I got to pray there in its state of Churban, I'll get to see it in its state of, building. So, look, Etam Levine is intellectually honest enough to say that if they mention exactly what the Rambam says, people know he's talking about Harabayis. So they leave it out. I wanted to argue this with someone who says he's not a Haredi obscurantist. He thinks that maybe Rambam wasn't talking about going to Harabayis because obviously the Rambam didn't go into the Beis Hamikdash where the Kodesh or the Kodesh Kodashim were. I said yes, but we pointed out many halachas in the Rambam's own writings that we've emphasized where the Rambam calls the areas that are mutter for anybody to go onto Harabayis until today, Mikdash. Okay? So that's what the Rambam's referring to. Okay? Bayis Hagadol v'Kadosh. And by the way, the Rambam never used the term for all of Jerusalem. Just following up. Okay, interesting. So they're being intentionally obscurantist by hiding this fact that the Rambam went to Harabayis. And there's a good reason why you'd have to hide this fact. Why do you have to hide this fact? Because then people might think about going to Harabayis.